They told you the world was set in stone. They told you your limits were already written before you took your first breath. They told you there was a ceiling to your potential, a line you could not cross. And if you ever tried, you'd be met with the harsh voice of reality. But here's the truth they never whispered in your ear. Reality is nothing more than the clay in your hands, and your mind is the sculptor. Every empire that has risen from dust, every fortune that has been built from nothing, every life that has been transformed beyond recognition, it all began inside someone's mind. Not in a bank account, not in an office, not in a factory, but in that invisible chamber of thought where the world cannot see, where you alone decide what will be. Napoleon Hill once said, "Whatever the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve." He was not speaking in poetry. He was describing a law as unshakable as gravity that rules the human experience. You own nothing in this life more completely than you own your mind. And the moment you truly own it, not rent it to fear, not lease it to doubt, not surrender it to other people's opinions, that's the moment you stop living like a pawn on someone else's board and start playing the game as the master of it. Think of Edison, working through the blackened nights, failing not once, not twice, but over 1,000 times before the light bulb turned night into day. If he had rented his mind to the ridicule of others, we'd still be sitting in the dark. Think of Henry Ford, mocked for dreaming of a horseless carriage, told by experts it was impossible. If he had leased his mind to their expert opinions, the world might still be moving at the pace of a galloping stallion instead of roaring engines. The pattern is clear. The world will always try to hand you its version of truth. But until you take back your mind, until you guard it as the most valuable fortress you will ever possess, you will live in someone else's story. The first step to owning your life is guarding your mental gates. Not every thought deserves entry. Not every voice deserves an audience. If you let the weeds grow unchecked in your mental garden, do not be surprised when they choke the life from your dreams. Control is not just about action, it's about attention. What you feed your mind, you feed your destiny. But guarding is not enough. You must also plant. You must sow the seeds of vision so vivid they outshine the distractions of the world. Picture what you want so clearly that the image burns brighter in your mind than any fear ever could. Walt Disney was fired from a newspaper for lacking imagination. Imagine that. The man who would go on to create entire worlds inside people's hearts was told he had no creativity. But in his mind, the castle was already standing, the music was already playing, and the laughter of children was already echoing. That vision was more real to him than the gray office where they told him he would never make it. Owning your mind means refusing to let circumstances dictate the boundaries of your belief. It means deciding, with iron conviction, that you are the architect, not the tenant. And when you own your mind, you begin to discover the second truth. Belief is the oxygen of achievement. You can have talent, you can have skill, you can have opportunity handed to you on a silver plate, but without belief, all of it will rot in your hands. Belief is not a feeling that drifts in with the morning breeze. It is a muscle forged through repetition, strengthened by discipline, tested in the fires of doubt. Abraham Lincoln lost election after election, suffered crushing personal losses, and carried the weight of depression like a shadow. Yet he held a belief that his purpose was greater than his pain. That belief carried him into the White House and into history. Belief begins with clarity. You cannot own your mind if you have no idea where it should go. A ship without a destination is at the mercy of every wave. But once you decide, truly decide, the winds may shift, the waters may rage, yet you will adjust your sails and move forward. Clarity is not just knowing what you want, it's knowing why you want it. Without a why, the how will never survive the storm. Your vision is the compass, your belief is the fuel, your discipline is the engine, and your actions, they are the footsteps that carve your name into the soil of history. Discipline is the unglamorous, relentless force that keeps the dream alive when the fire of motivation burns low. It is what pushes the painter to the canvas every morning, the writer to the desk when inspiration is nowhere to be found, the entrepreneur to the grind long after the applause has faded. Discipline does not care about moods. It does not wait for perfect timing. It shows up when you are tired, when you are broken, when the voices say it's time to quit, and it whispers, one more step. Think of Carnegie, who began with nothing but the will to keep moving. His fortune was not built in a day, but in the countless days where no one was watching, no one was cheering, no one believed but him. Owning your mind also means mastering your emotions. The world will throw its storms at you, losses, betrayals, failures that cut deep, and if you let those storms take the wheel, you will crash before you reach your destination. Emotional mastery is not about denying pain. It's about refusing to let pain make your decisions. The greatest leaders, the greatest innovators, the greatest builders, they felt fear. They felt doubt. They felt despair. But they refused to let those feelings own their mind. Adaptability becomes your ally. The mind that is rigid will shatter in the face of change. The mind that is flexible will bend, adjust, and find a new path. Ford adapted, Edison adapted, Disney adapted. Every titan of industry, every pioneer, every dreamer who made the impossible possible, they adjusted their sails when the wind betrayed them. Gratitude sharpens this adaptability. When you train your mind to see what is still in your hands rather than what has slipped through your fingers, you gain the strength to keep building. Gratitude is not passive. It is a weapon against bitterness, against envy, against the slow poison of self-pity. It keeps your focus forward. And here lies the paradox. When you own your mind, you also release the illusion of control over everything else. You cannot dictate the waves, but you can command your ship. You cannot force the world to hand you success, but you can prepare so relentlessly that when the moment comes, there is no doubt you will seize it. History does not remember the ones who surrendered their mind to the voices of limitation. It remembers the stubborn few who stood guard over their mental fortress, who refused entry to fear, who revised tendency to self-doubt, who paid the rent of discipline every single day until their vision became reality. You, but right now, are holding the keys. The question is, will you use them? Owning your mind means stepping into the role of creator rather than consumer. Most people drift through life reacting to the news, to gossip, to the economy, to the weather, to the opinions of strangers. They wake up each morning waiting to see what the world will hand them. And when the world hands them struggle, they curse it. When the world hands them comfort, they cling to it. But the one who owns their mind does not wait to see what the day will bring. They bring the day. This is the difference between living in default and living in design. Default is easy. You don't have to think, don't have to plan, don't have to hold yourself accountable. But ease is a deceptive comfort. It's the warm blanket that keeps you sleeping through your potential. Design, on the other hand, demands something of you. It demands vision. It demands action. It demands the courage to look in the mirror and say, this is not enough, and I will not stop until it is. Think of the steel magnate Andrew Carnegie. When he arrived in America as a poor boy from Scotland, there was no sign, no guarantee, no prophecy carved in the sky, telling him he'd become one of the richest men in history. What he had was a mind hungry enough to learn, stubborn enough to endure, and disciplined enough to take every opportunity and squeeze it for all it was worth. That was no accident. That was design. You cannot own your mind and remain a passive passenger in your own life. You must become the architect, the engineer, the builder, all at once. You must see the blueprint in your mind before you can ever lay the first brick. And here is the truth no one likes to admit. When you begin to truly own your mind, the world will resist you. Friends may question you, family may misunderstand you, strangers may mock you, and the greatest resistance will not come from outside. It will come from the deep corners of your own mind, where old fears and old habits still whisper that it's safer to stay small. This is where resilience becomes your shield. Resilience is not blind optimism. It is the art of recovering faster than you fall. It is knowing that every failure is not a wall but a door, locked perhaps, but waiting for the one who refuses to stop knocking. Thomas Edison didn't fail 1,000 times at making the light bulb. He discovered 1,000 ways it didn't work, and in doing so, got one step closer to the way that would. That is resilience, not ignoring reality, but refusing to bow to it when it does not serve your vision. When you own your mind, you see failure differently. The average person sees failure as the end. The master of their mind sees it as refinement, the sharpening of the blade, the strengthening of the steel. And when that steel is tested, you begin to realize that your greatest enemy and your greatest ally wear the same face, your own. This is why self-mastery is the highest form of power. If you can govern your thoughts, you can govern your actions. If you can govern your actions, you can govern your results. And if you can govern your results, you can shape your destiny. But self-mastery requires more than willpower. It requires awareness. You must become the watcher of your own mind, noticing when doubt creeps in, when old habits pull you back, when the excuses start sounding logical. You must catch them in the act and decide, does this thought serve me or does it sabotage me? Make no mistake, the saboteur will wear many disguises. It will speak in the voice of comfort, telling you that you've done enough today. It will speak in the voice of reason, telling you that your dream is too risky. It will speak in the voice of humility, telling you to stay small so you don't seem arrogant. But beneath every disguise is the same truth. It is fear, trying to reclaim the throne you have taken from it. You must decide who rules. And when you decide, when you plant your flag firmly in the soil of your own mind, you unlock a force that every great achiever has known: momentum. Momentum is the invisible ally that multiplies every effort, turning small wins into great victories. But momentum is not given, it is built. And it is built the same way a fire is built, by feeding it daily, protecting it from the wind, and refusing to let it die out when the night grows cold. This is why discipline and persistence matter more than bursts of inspiration. Inspiration will start the engine, but only discipline will keep the wheels turning when the road stretches endlessly ahead. Yet there is one more truth, one that Napoleon Hill understood deeply. No mind, no matter how strong, thrives in isolation. You must guard your mind, yes, but you must also feed it with the energy of other great minds. Surround yourself with those who lift your standard simply by being in your presence. Your environment is the soil, and your mind is the seed. In poor soil, even the strongest seed will struggle. In rich soil, even an average seed can grow into something magnificent. This is why masterminds were so central to Hill's philosophy, the collective power of minds aligned in toward a vision. One mind alone can spark a flame. Many minds together can fuel a firestorm. But remember, environment is not just people. It's everything you allow into your mental space. The books you read, the media you consume, the conversations you engage in. Every input shapes the output of your life. If you feed your mind with noise, do not be surprised when it produces confusion. Feed it with clarity, with wisdom, with truth, and it will produce direction. You must become intentional not just about how you think, but about what you think about. The man who spends his mental energy on gossip will never have enough left to build greatness. The woman who invests her attention in comparison will starve her own vision before it can take root. When you own your mind, you break free from the addiction of reacting to everything. You move from being a servant to circumstances to being the master of them. You realize that life is not something happening to you. It is something happening through you. And once you see that, you will never see the world the same way again. Owning your mind means you no longer measure your future by your past. You understand that the past is a reference point, not a prison sentence. Too many people chain themselves to what has already happened. The mistakes they made, the failures they endured, the people who betrayed them, the years they wasted. They replay the same scenes in their mind like a film on repeat, wondering why their life never changes. But the one who owns their mind understands this. The past is useful only when it is transformed into fuel. Henry Ford once said, "Failure is simply the opportunity to begin again, this time more intelligently." That is the alchemy of ownership, the ability to turn every scar into a lesson, every loss into leverage. When you own your mind, you stop asking, "Why did this happen to me?" And you start asking, "How can I use this?" The storm that was meant to break you becomes the very wind that pushes your sails forward. But this transformation does not happen by accident. It requires a conscious decision to redirect your focus, because whatever you focus on expands. Focus on the injustice, and you grow bitter. Focus on the lesson, and you grow wiser. Focus on the opportunity, and you grow stronger. This is why clarity of vision is not optional. It is essential. Without it, your mind will be hijacked by every passing distraction, every flash of negativity, every voice that tells you to quit. But when your vision is clear, you filter the world through it. Every event is weighed against the question, does this bring me closer to my purpose or pull me away from it? And once you begin to live with that level of clarity, you will notice something extraordinary. Life starts to bend toward your intention. The right people cross your path. The right ideas spark in your mind. The right opportunities seem to appear out of nowhere. It's not magic. It's not coincidence. It's the alignment of your focus, your energy, and your action. It is the law of attraction in its most practical, grounded form. You attract what you are prepared to receive. But preparation is not passive. You cannot sit in the dark and wish for the light. You must strike the match. Thomas Edison did not dream the light bulb into existence by imagination alone. He put his hands to work again and again until the dream took physical form. This is the bridge between thought and reality. Disciplined, relentless, intentional action. Action is where many lose their way. They wait for the perfect time, the perfect resources, the perfect confidence. But perfection is a mirage. It moves further away the closer you get to it. The masters of their minds do not wait. They start with what they have, where they are, and they build momentum through motion. Every empire began with a single step into uncertainty. Every masterpiece began with the first imperfect stroke of a brush. Every fortune began with the courage to risk something for the chance of something greater. And here is where fear tries to step back in, whispering, "What if you fail?" But the one who owns their mind answers, "What if I succeed?" They understand that fear is not a sign to stop. It's a sign that you are pushing into new territory. And new territory is where all growth lives. Resilience becomes the habit of your soul. You learn to rise faster each time you fall. You develop the ability to pivot without losing sight of the destination. This adaptability is what separates those who survive from those who thrive. The world will change, economies shift, industries collapse, technology evolves, circumstances twist without warning. But the owner of their mind does not cling to the old map. They draw a new one. Abraham Lincoln navigated a nation through civil war because he refused to be paralyzed by uncertainty. He acted with the information he had, adapted when new realities emerged, and kept his eyes locked on the vision of unity. The mind that cannot adapt becomes brittle. The mind that adapts becomes unstoppable. But adaptability without gratitude becomes hollow. Gratitude is the force that keeps your ambition from turning into greed. It keeps your pursuit of greatness grounded in the awareness of what you already have. Without gratitude, success feels empty. With it, every step forward feels like a gift. Gratitude is also a safeguard for your mind. When you are grateful, you cannot dwell in resentment. When you are grateful, you cannot drown in self-pity. It pulls your focus toward what is working, what is possible, and what is worth fighting for. And that fight, the fight for your mind, never truly ends. It is a daily choice. Each morning, the world will try to lay claim to your attention. Notifications, headlines, demands, and distractions will flood your gates. You must decide before the world even wakes that your mind belongs to you. This is why so many great achievers guard the first moments of their day. They understand that how you begin shapes everything that follows. A morning owned by discipline, vision, and gratitude sets the tone for a day owned by clarity and action. A morning surrendered to chaos creates a day lost to reaction. You do not have to control the entire world to control your destiny. You only have to control the space between your ears. From that control flows every other victory. From that mastery comes every other form of freedom: financial, emotional, spiritual. When you own your mind, you own the lens through which you see every challenge, every opportunity, every relationship, every moment of your life, and that lens can turn a setback into a setup, a closed door into a redirection, a failure into the foundation of something greater than you imagined. History will not remember you for the thoughts you meant to act on. It will remember you for the actions you took because your mind was strong enough to lead you there. So stand guard, train relentlessly, act decisively, and refuse, absolutely refuse, to let another day pass where your mind is ruled by anything other than your own vision, your own discipline, your own unshakable belief. Because when you own your mind, you own your life. There will come a day when you wake up and realize that no one is coming to save you. Not the government, not your boss, not your family, not your friends, not the economy. That day is both terrifying and liberating. Terrifying because you understand the weight is on your shoulders. Liberating because you finally see that the power is in your hands. That is the day you truly begin to own your mind. You stop waiting for permission. You stop needing approval. You stop measuring your worth by other people's applause. You start moving from an internal compass, one set to your values, your vision, your truth. The world will still try to hand you its script. It will still tell you who you are, what you can have, what you should settle for. But you will no longer read from their pages. You will write your own, and you will write it with the ink of discipline and the pen of persistence. Owning your mind does not mean you will never feel fear again. It means fear will no longer be your master. You will still hear the voice that says, "This is too big, too risky, too much for you." But now you will recognize it for what it is, the echo of old limitations that no longer apply. Every time you act in the face of that voice, you strengthen the muscle of courage. And courage, once trained, becomes a force you can call upon at will. Look at every name etched into the history of achievement. Edison, Ford, Carnegie, Lincoln, Disney. None of them were free from doubt, from failure, from critics. But they each had a moment when they declared, "This is my life, and I will live it on my terms." And they never handed their minds back to the world again. You must declare the same. You must plant your vision so deeply in your mind that no storm can uproot it. You must feed it daily with thoughts that strengthen it, actions that build it, and habits that protect it. You must reject the toxic diet of negativity that most people consume without question. And you must replace it with the discipline of intentional thought. This is not romantic work. This is not the glossy, polished image of success you see on magazine covers. This is the grit of rising before the world wakes. This is the grind of working when no one claps for you. This is the loneliness of walking a path most people will never understand. But it is also the deepest satisfaction you will ever know. The quiet power of realizing that you are no longer a servant to your own fears, no longer a prisoner of other people's expectations. And here is the truth that changes everything. When you own your mind, your external world will eventually catch up. The job you want, the relationships you dream of, the freedom you crave, they are not the starting point. They are the point. The world you experience is a reflection of the world you have built inside your mind. Change that inner world, and the outer world has no choice but to follow. This is why two people can face the same circumstance and produce completely different outcomes. One sees a dead end, the other sees a detour. One sees a problem, the other sees a puzzle. One stops, the other adapts. The difference is not in resources. The difference is in the ownership of the mind. And make no mistake, ownership is an ongoing battle. The mind, if left unguarded, will default to old patterns, old fears, old excuses. That is why you must renew your claim on it every single day. You must remind yourself that your thoughts are yours to choose, your beliefs are yours to shape, and your destiny is yours to create. When the world gets loud, you return to your vision. When the path gets hard, you return to your belief. When the storms hit, you return to your discipline. And when you fall, because you will, you do not waste time cursing the ground. You rise, you adjust, you keep moving. There will be moments when you feel alone. That is the cost of walking where others will not. But remember, every visionary was once considered delusional, Every pioneer was once called foolish. Every innovator was once told to quit. And yet history does not remember the critics. It remembers the builders. So build. Build the mind that can withstand rejection, that can outlast failure, that can navigate uncertainty. Build the mind that is so grounded in its purpose that no storm can shake it. Build the mind that leads the life you were meant to live. And when people ask you, what changed? How did you turn it around? You will not point to luck or timing or some secret opportunity. You will tell them the truth. I took back my mind, and when I owned my mind, I own in my life. That is the moment they will understand, or perhaps the moment they will begin their own journey. Either way, your work is not done, because the highest use of a mastered mind is not merely to enrich yourself, but to lift others. The mind that has tasted freedom has a responsibility to share the path, to inspire, to mentor, to challenge those still trapped in the cages you have broken free from. Because in the end, true ownership is not selfish. It is expansive. It creates ripples that touch lives you will never meet, plant seeds you will never see grow, and light flames you will never witness burn. And perhaps that is the final and most profound truth. The life you own does not end with you. The mind you master becomes a legacy, a spark passed forward, igniting in others the courage to claim their own. So walk with that awareness, speak with that power, live with that discipline, and when you lay your head down at night, know this: you did not surrender your mind today. You ruled it, you shaped it, you used it to create, to lead, to grow, and tomorrow you will rise and do it again. Because this is not a one-time victory. This is the way you live. This is the standard you hold. This is the oath you keep to yourself. I own my mind. I own my life. And with that oath, there is nothing you cannot build, become, or overcome.